we quote unquote flatten the curve.
Absolutely. I'm hearing that. I'm hearing all kinds of things, all kinds of ideas like that. But we have to understand that moving forward, we're going to have to be flexible enough to allow people to make decisions that's best for their families. So if that means, hey, my child just can't come to school, I don't want my child coming to school, so I'm going to do all my stuff online. Well, DPS, Durham Public Schools, is going to have to, figure out a way to offer things online as well. Also, smaller classes. Maybe it's first half of the day there's a certain set of kids, second half of the day is another set of kids. But I've heard a lot of different things, but all options are on the table right now, especially if we can't get the testing and the vaccines and things like that as we expect.
Yep, definitely. Well, definitely stay on the line if you would. And then, Dean, you'll see Chalet at the bottom. So if you bring Chalet in, I want to talk to her a little bit about what's going on in the dance world. And then I want to bring in Marco after that. And then I'll bring in Hassan. Who knows? Somebody else may call in. But if you can bring Chalet in, that would be great. Hello, Chalet. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you doing? You just heard Mike Lee, our person with the school board, talking to us and everything, head of the school board here in Durham. You've had to face some different things as well because, like I said, you've got your dance company. And by the way, I did not know about, because I was doing some research, your mixed heritage, because, like I said, I knew that there was different heritage, but I see that you've got part of your heritage being the European American, but apparently there are some Native American roots, and I have some of that as well that I was not as aware of. So as I was reading about some of your history, I was like, wow, she's got some Native American roots in addition to some of her other roots. But I was just wondering, I know that right before everything started, you did a couple of performances at the Fruit, and you still managed to do those, I think maybe with either a small audience or a limited audience. And then, of course, you've done stuff online. So how are you coping as a dancer with what's going on, and how are you planning your next step and everything as we're moving forward in this new era, this new age that we're in? Because, like I said, you've always done innovative dancing no matter what's going on, but now it sounds like you're having to add some innovation to your dancing because of what's going on in the world.
We really are. We're trying to think really fast, especially because the dancers in the company don't really have, financial securities for situations like this. Unfortunately, with the way that the arts are, especially in the dance field and in Durham, it's just a different kind of ecosystem. So one of the ways that we jumped into it immediately was I'm not really great at technology, but I'm learning as quickly as I can. We had to figure out how to live stream our performance. We brought in a couple of people to help us with that, and then we figured that we would start trying to live stream some classes as a fundraiser for our dancers. So the classes are free, but then we wanted it to be both a service for the community to feel that sense of connection and to have something that they could do physically, but for those that were able, it's kind of like a pay what you can if you can kind of situation. And so the dancers have been working hard with that. We've been offering 7 classes a week. That was one of our first strategies. The other thing that we're planning is a virtual premiere of the performance that we were supposed to premiere at the Durham Fruit in March. And that show opened the weekend that the social distancing orders came out. So we were dealing with dwindling audience numbers, people feeling concerned about coming to the show, people asking for refunds. And it was a real fast, unusual situation because our annual premiere is usually our big show that helps fundraise for our following year's season. So it was a big hit, for the company financially. But the upside of it was absolutely an incredible experience to figure out how suddenly through live streaming we were able to reach people outside of Durham. For example, my brother in Utah got to see the show. So we're going to give that another go and kind of do a YouTube watch party that'll happen on Friday, May 15th at 8 p.m. And we're getting all the artists together for an artist talk back that'll happen on Zoom afterwards so that we still have another chance to kind of, share this show. It's so unusual when you're self-producing your work. You usually spend a year developing it. You spend a week loading into the theater, using a wonderful and multi-dimensional venue like the Fruit. of course, we've got to build the light plot, and we're designing the set and building the stage. And so it was a painful, sad experience to be losing our audience that has sold out since 2017. But we pulled it off, and we made sure we got really good video so that it would still have a future and still be able to be watched by our audiences. So yeah, our Shaga classes are online now, and the virtual premiere to help the in-between, which is the piece that we developed since January of 2019, still has an audience, and that's why we do what we do, is for people. So we're really trying to innovate ways to stay connected with our audience and ways to stay connected with our community, and hopefully we'll continue working with ideas. There's actually been a lot of great support from the local arts organizations coming together with a real focus on understanding that both individual artists as well as artist organizations are in great need right now.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely a great need, and like you said, both for the individual artists as well as the arts organizations. I want to bring Marco into the conversation shortly as well, but just really quickly, and this goes for both, and I also want to hear a little bit more of your background for those that are listening that don't know it, but Chalet, that is. But for both Mike and you, could you tell us a little bit about, because I know sometimes people are wondering about online bandwidth. Was actually just talking to a friend of mine that does a show that he travels around, and he's thinking about doing it online, and then his big concern is not having enough bandwidth. And I imagine that you might have to have a tremendous amount of bandwidth to do these things. But then, like I mentioned before y'all joined the call, I was actually on one of those online dance parties trying to shake my tail feather a little bit and do a little yoga practice and everything. And it seems like in some cases with Zoom and everything else that's out there that you might not need as much bandwidth as some people fear in order to get these dance performances on. So, Mike, you've got a technological background. You had to deal with it as a customer, Chalet. So I was just wondering what your thoughts are. Has it become easier to get things online with just basic laptops, or do you need all kinds of fancy bandwidth and things in order to pull these things off?
Well, the term bandwidth can be used in a bunch of different ways, but anyone who has access to, high-speed internet, that high-speed internet is defined as anything other than dial-up. You guys remember, maybe, showing my age here, but, you used to have to dial into a modem and you hear these squiggly sounds and you connect, and then it was like 56K, and it was like, back then it was fast to us because we didn't know any better. But with the advent of, internet through cable, through satellite, you have your Google Fiber and everything like that, that bandwidth has been made to come to individual houses or apartments or whatever that might be. And that is more than enough to stream video. Now computers have gotten a lot better. You can actually do, streaming, and you have that bandwidth on your cell phones now, your mobile phones. So that bandwidth is not the availability of bandwidth is not as big of a problem as it used to be even 5 years ago. But with the advent of these high-speed technologies, having that, being able to stream those videos, that's how YouTube became so popular, because you could stream video. You now have the ability to quickly access that information, and that's what the bandwidth is. So I don't think it's a problem nowadays with cities, maybe in the rural areas where, these technologies may not be as available, but in, cities, urban areas, you're gonna find the amount of bandwidth that you need to be able to stream this information.
No, that's great that you can actually do that. Now, one of the other things I'm just curious to hear, particularly from Mike, and then, like I said, I want to bring in Marco and everything into the conversation. But one of the things I'm hearing from some of my friends that are teachers, and Chalet may even have the same kind of thought, is that, of course, now we're all, whether it's corporate America, whether it's the school kids doing their homework, whether it's even organizations doing their work, everybody seems to be having a Zoom meeting or a StreamYard or the different other platforms. So I'm wondering, even as somebody in the education field, being in the school board, are you hearing some of the students complaining about what, for lack of a better term, can be called Zoom burnout? Because it seems like everybody's doing Zoom conferences at least 3 or 4 times a day, which is a wonderful thing to have that access. But I guess what I'm concerned about is there going to be too much burnout with everybody using it on a regular basis? And even among your own children, Mike, are they still comfortable with that, or are they missing their connection with their peers? Because, I mean, that's definitely something that kids like, and I know, of course, they have to follow the social distancing, but I'm just wondering, are they already starting to gripe to you that they're missing that connection with their peers?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because it's extremely important that we understand the challenges that our students and our kids are going through. I work from home, and I'm on Zoom meetings probably 5 or 6 hours a day. That's just the way that I work. I work with customers and so forth, and that's just fine for me. But this is a completely new era, and for the most part, I haven't heard any complaints about Zoom burnout. And when my kids are on with their teachers and their classes, everyone seems to be having a good time. But kids display they don't quite know how to communicate that they're missing their peers like we would, and that can come when I just don't feel like talking anymore, or I'm so bored and this and that. What they're really saying is, yes, I am missing my peers. And my kids, they miss actually being able to hug their teachers, because they love their teachers. Not my 7th grader, he's too cool to do that, but, you know what I mean. He still misses his teachers. He misses the connections in the cafeterias, running around on the playground with their different friends and things like that. And so I do feel if this continues much further without some sort of a break, we are going to run into the point to where kids are just going to say, no, I'm just over this. I'm done with this. But kids are very resilient, and they watch a lot of YouTube. They're on computers all the time. They're watching YouTube. They're watching video games. They're doing video games, all that sort of thing. So this isn't that far out of their norm. They don't really have a norm outside of computers like we do. So I don't see it really becoming a super burnout sort of thing, but I do see the feelings that they're having as far as missing their peers and their teachers, the physical contact, being away from home for a little bit and then coming back home, that sort of thing. I see that on the rise.
Oh, yeah, I can definitely see that. Shale, and then Dean, if you could, while I'm asking this question to Shale, bring Marco into the conversation and everything. But Shale, are you seeing that with your dancers also? Because definitely I know dancing is very much of a social medium, whether you're doing ballroom dancing, whether you're doing modern dancing, which is what I consider more of what you do, or whether you're just doing dancing with, at the nightclub with your friend or significant other or whatever. But it's such a social endeavor. Like I said, I've definitely been attending those daybreaker parties, which is folks dancing on Zoom, and maybe there's 3 or 4 people in each house, but it's, hundreds, if not thousands of people having this massive Zoom party that's going on. But it's not the same as being in the nightclub with the dancers, or in a dance hall, or even at a concert with the dancers. So how are your dancers coping with this, and how are you actually working with your dancers? I mean, are y'all practicing through Zoom, or are you meeting at one location? Because, your dance troupe is actually a pretty decent-sized dance troupe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. I think that it's hitting the dancers maybe a little bit harder, especially when they're teaching classes, because of just that longing, that missing of actual connection with the students. Zoom is such an interesting platform where, everyone mutes themselves so that the teacher can teach the class. And so there's less questions, there's less interaction, there's less, real, energy that's generated between people just coming into a room. When we think about like the very beginning origins of dance, all the way back into tribal dances, everything was in a circle. You would grieve together, you would dance together, you would pray for rain together. It's something that's been the essence of dance for so long, is people coming together. So it's definitely hitting my teachers. They do feel a little bit of burnout staring at the screen. we've kind of made it a fun part of class to kind of break our box. And so to kind of play compositionally with the boxes that we are constantly staring into. And we've seen a drop-off in enrollment in our classes. There are lots of people who are not interested in taking a Zoom dance class but would love to come back to the studio. And then there are those who really appreciate the fact that there's still the opportunity